Today on Pro Mindset, we got a Chicago Bear on today. We got Sterling Weatherford, number 50 on the defense. Sterling, welcome to Pro Mindset today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, Sterling. We don't go way back, but you got a connection to our family. Share with everybody your journey as it goes to the NFL, being a rookie last year, and how we got connected.
Yeah. So kind of a bizarre, pretty funny story. So after my fifth year at Miami of Ohio, I actually played safety, and going through the combine and all the the off-season training to get to the NFL, they told me that I was going to play linebacker. So I was fortunate enough to get an invite to the Senior Bowl. Was not lucky enough to get an invitation to the combine, but at the Senior Bowl, it was kind of funny because that was the first time I had met JoJo, your son, and it was an interaction for about 10 seconds. And thinking back to it, it was a pretty bizarre. I don't even remember what we said. Like we just kind of looked at each other, had a little stare off, and then both just like started laughing. I thought I'd never meet him again, and I actually had forgot about him until so draft night, day 1, day 2, day 3. Don't get my name called, and I had a couple of free agency deals, and I'm from Indianapolis. Just decided that Indianapolis was the best one. Not that they gave the most money, and it just was the best fit. And so that is where I met JoJo officially. And I remember that we had a Zoom call with all the rookies on it, and I remember swiping through and looking, and just looking at JoJo, and I'm pretty sure he's sitting in your backyard, his AirPods in, his feet kicked up, and he was outside. And I was like, all right, that's the guy to beat. Because they had written articles about us, about how it was him or me, and one or the other, one or the other. We just kept hearing that. My agent, my parents, everybody was saying that, and so we go through rookie mini camp, and me being from Indianapolis, after rookie mini camp was over, JoJo had asked me to take him out and do some laundry or something. I had a car, he didn't, and he hops in the car. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take you for a drive. First thing he says when he hops in the car, he says, "What do you think about Infinity?" And a pretty bizarre question, but if you know JoJo, not that far out there. And if you know me, mechanical engineering background at Miami of Ohio, just love to explore, outer space, all this stuff. Like, love to talk about it, love to talk about math, numbers. And so, of course, here I go, just instantly just rambling on. Fast forward about 3 hours. The car ride was only 25 minutes, and then we sat in the car for about 2.5 hours and just talking and talking. We kind of came to a conclusion of like, man, like, why do we have to hate each other? Like, why is everybody pinning us up against each other? All you hear is, oh, you have coworkers in the NFL, you don't have friends, right? And that's the image. That's what's constantly being put into your head. And we just decided, let's go another route. Let's be friends and push each other and like just see what happens. And I think, last time we had talked, you had mentioned it. I don't think that either of us would have made the team if we didn't make that decision in that moment. Going through the rest of OTAs, going into camp, like every single day, we were just pushing each other. We roomed together in camp, and we just kind of clicked it off. And by the end of the camp, like it was a weird feeling because it was 10:28. We're playing ping pong in the locker room. I mean, him and I, very similar and very different, all in the same. One way that we're very similar is competitiveness. And so, of course, ping pong, all these, throwing cornhole, golf, like, you name it. It doesn't matter. I'm the youngest of 4. Like, all my siblings play basketball in college. If somebody challenges me, like, I'm stepping up to the plate. I'm excited for it. I'm trying to win. And so the story goes from me, of course. I think JoJo would agree, but I got the best of him in ping pong. And I was the guy to beat in the locker room. But anyways, we're playing at 10:28. Final cuts are at 10:30, and we set down the ping pong battles. I grab my bag, grab my stuff, look at my phone. I have a couple missed calls. I'm like, I wonder what I pick up. I'm like, all right, I'm going to take this call as I'm walking out to the team room. Next thing you know, it's the scout, the one that we call the Grim Reaper. And he says, hey, like, we're going to take you down, have talk with Ballard. And, just in that moment, I was like, dang, like, I just got cut. Talk to the head coach, talk to Ballard, talk to position coach. But thankfully, I got to have a moment with JoJo, like, hey, man, like, congrats, you did it. And, like, I don't know what my future is, but I'm thankful for this time. And we had linked up later that day. And, for him, it was weird because we kind of developed this dream together of like, damn, yeah, we're both like, we're going to beat the odds. We're both going to make the team. Like, having that mindset, we're going to compete against each other, and just have a ball. And we did that. But for him, it was like, his dream just came true. He's an Indianapolis Colt. He made the team, and I had got cut. So it was weird, but we had enough time to kind of talk about that. And like, that is weird, right? Because like, you just went through the grinder with somebody, competed head to head, had a lot of fun, like really felt like we were both going to make the team. And then next day I showed up for practice squad. I had my pen, I had my paper, I had my energy drink. I was ready to show them like, hey, you made a mistake, right? You cut me, you shouldn't have. And I had no clue what waivers was at the time. I'm just sitting there, right, in the cafeteria, ready to go to practice. And then next thing I just got a text from the assistant position coach, Cato June. Used to play for the Colts, and he goes, hey, good luck in Chicago. My agent hadn't texted me yet. The coaches, I had nothing. I'm confused. I'm like, what's going on here? And I just like got up and I walked back to the back room and I started talking to him. He's like, yeah, man, you just got picked up by the Bears. Like, you got picked up off of waivers. Congrats, like have fun in Chicago. And, that was kind of my welcome to the NFL moment of just a dream. You put so much into it, get cut. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And then picked up like a Sims in the Sims game and just dropped in Chicago. I didn't know the coaches, I didn't know my teammates, and they were like, "Hey, you're starting this week on kickoff, all 4 phases." And I was like, "Holy crap!" So yeah, that's kind of was my transition from the Colts to the Bears, and then I was active all year. Played in I think 16 games. I had missed a couple there at the end, but I mean it was a blast. I think that God definitely placed me in Indianapolis for a reason. We got to do fall camp 15 minutes from where I grew up, so my high school coaches, teachers, like it was very special. And I tell this to a lot of people, like Indiana is a basketball state. It's not like Ohio or Texas or Florida or anywhere in the South. And particularly my school, we had 150 kids in my grade, and I think that there were maybe 6 Division I athletes in 8 years that came out.
Wow.
One of them was me. One of them was my brother. One of them was my sister. One of them was my sister-in-law. And I'm like, so definitely just as far as odds go, and the fact that I chose to go in football and then went to a MAC school and even had an opportunity, right? I just looked at all of that as just so blessed, and then being able to put on a Colts jersey, being from Indianapolis was super special, and then being in Chicago was perfect. I mean, it was close enough that my parents got to come to every game, every home game, and far enough away that I didn't have to deal with a lot of distractions and a lot of like the Pandora's box was never opened up for me, so to speak. And so,
Hey,
yeah.
Sterling, let me stop you right there. Okay. So I'm going to go back in your description of what your journey's been to that point in time when you guys decided to become like buddies, homeboys, and decided to pull for each other and compete with each other, trying to show the Colts that you both deserve the team.
Yeah.
Both deserve to make the team. Okay. And then to that moment when you're playing ping pong and you finish up and you find out you got cut, I get a call from JoJo later that day after the team meeting, like he was like his puppy died. I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, what's wrong? He's like, Sterling got cut. I'm like, this is a business. I mean, it's a nasty business. I said, you don't take care of your job, he's going to be on the practice squad if he doesn't get claimed. He's going to take your job again. And so it's like it's that kind of cutthroat stuff. And so I just did a calculation on my computer or on my phone. On that day, there's 1,184 guys. Maybe some get cut the day before, but in that final cuts, there's 1,184 players that have their dream potentially shattered. And there's only about 8% that get claimed.
Yeah.
So you were one of those guys that, Matt being from Indy, probably had connections at Indy, head coach with the Bears, was like, man, they're going to let him go. We're going to bring him in because you were very productive in the preseason. You had a lot of tackles. You were healthy. You showed out well. You played well in the defense. You played well on teams. So I wasn't surprised at all when you got claimed. Okay?
Yeah, and
but
I was definitely, I don't like to brag on myself, but definitely blessed to be in that position. Right, I actually had 2 waivers put in for me. The Bears were obviously had the first pick, but the Saints also put a waiver in for me as well. And it allowed me to kind of take that mindset of, okay, like I was at peace. I was at peace with it in a sense of I did everything I could, and my journey branches off from Indianapolis, and but it always started here. And I think that when JoJo, right, he called you, we actually went to the hotel, Lydia and I, my wife, and we talked to JoJo and kind of came to the conclusion of like, yeah, like it sucks, but at the end of the day, like we had that mindset. We chose to stick to that mindset, and it was almost a moment of why would we stop now? It's like we still have that opportunity to go play football. It looks different. We're not wearing the same uniform anymore, but it's still there. That still exists. That competitiveness still exists. We're calling each other every 2 or 3 weeks in the season. Oh, hey, how'd you do? How did this game go? What was this like? We played a couple of the same teams last year, and so that relationship that we have still existed, even though we were in different physical locations on different teams.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things I think surprises people is that even the best of the best play for multiple teams. Your very own Peyton Manning, they should, probably put more than one statue up in Indianapolis for him. He wins the Super Bowl with the Broncos.
Yep.
Tom Brady's the GOAT. He plays for 2 teams. LeBron, how many teams does LeBron play for? 1, 2, 3, and then back to the same team again. So he's bounced around. Kevin Durant's bounced around. So it's like once you get to the professional level, you focus on your career, your job, your dream, and don't worry about who's signing the checks.
Exactly. And I think that there's something to be said also just, right, like being able to pick up and play in a different city. I think that's something that, right, people don't really talk about. Obviously for LeBron and KD and guys like that, it's a much easier transition. But, I felt like when I showed up to Chicago, like I got to prove myself all over again. And that pressure actually helped me be able to go out and perform like, hey, yeah, like I did play well in the preseason, but it doesn't matter, right? And it was a real. It got to show me like, regardless of whether I would have made it to Indianapolis or not, what you do in the preseason doesn't matter. it helps you either make the team or not make the team, and then it's a fresh, clean slate week one, and it only matters what you do that week, and then the next week, and the next week. And so I think that definitely, I like to use it as my welcome to the NFL moment. And I got it before I ever played a snap, and I'm so thankful for that.
Okay, Sterling. So let's go back to your roots. You've got a sister that played D1 basketball. You have a couple brothers that have played high level hoops. Your dad was a coach, basketball coach. Kind of share with the audience your upbringing and your introduction to sports and the competition that you had, not just on the court, but in the driveway, and how your brothers, probably all, and your sister too, but probably your brothers helped you become the player that you are today.
Yeah, I think that my family is definitely a huge part in my story. Growing up, I got all these scars and stuff on my knees and elbows from playing on the gravel in in the front yard, our little 8 foot goal. But I think that right, my oldest brother, he kind of, well, he obviously started the path for our family. Being from a small school, it doesn't take much, but going to play it after high school is a big thing. He played Division III. He played it at Rose Holman, was an engineer, and he had a lot of success there. And that kind of showed me, all right, it doesn't matter where you go play. If you're pursuing your dreams, you have success, like go get it, right? Like it's right there. And he had opportunities to go play overseas, but he also had an engineering degree from the best engineering school in the nation. So he said, well, I can go make just as much money and be at home, right? And start a family and all that stuff. My sister in high school, she was an Indiana All Star. She's 4 years older than me. She went to Evansville. She was rookie all team of the year, all conference, you know, team of the year. And then decided to stop playing basketball altogether after a year. She couldn't stand her coach. She had some issues with her roommate. And then fast forward, she goes to Louisville, starts making money by hustling people at the YMCA, just playing basketball. And she's probably 5'5", 5'6", super scrappy, but can jump up and touch the backboard on a 10-foot goal. Like she has that athleticism in her, and just a killer mindset. And that definitely, right, really sparked, okay, like, a little bit more pressure as far as from the school, like, all right, well, what are these next two going to do, right? Their success with basketball. And Grant, he's 2.5 years older than me, and he really had a lot of success through high school, was on the best AAU team in the nation, got an offer to go play at Purdue. And so, when we're younger, obviously we didn't know any of this, but that's a pretty good 2-on-2 in our driveway. And I was more of a late bloomer. I grew pretty tall, but I was always skinny and lanky and uncoordinated. And it kind of just taught me, all right, like, I have a brother who, Grant, he dunked the ball in 7th grade his first time. Like, just stupid athletic, like, always had a lot of success through school and sports. And it put a lot of pressure on me, but in the same sense, it allowed me to create my own identity. I think that because it didn't matter, everybody looked at him like, oh crap, like, look what he can do. And he had a lot of success in football as well. But for me, I was always like, yeah, he's just my big brother, right? And I've lost to him a million times, and I'm not afraid to lose to him 1,000,001. But he's afraid to lose to me, right? Nobody wants their little brother to beat them. And so that's kind of the competitive edge I started to create, that narrative I started creating in my own mind of, it doesn't matter who I'm going up against. And that has definitely helped me translate it to right where I'm at now of, there's all these big names, and everybody glorifies, right, like these big name stars in the NFL. And at the end of the day, like, they're a human, I'm a human, and I'm going to give my best effort, and whatever comes from it, right? So that's, I would say, definitely the biggest thing coming from a very competitive family, very athletic family, had a lot of success. And I don't know where we got it from. Neither of my parents are athletic. I think my dad might have boxed. He couldn't make the high school basketball team. My mom grew up in Alaska, had 25 kids in her class. Like, I think she might have played basketball, but they only had 6 people, so they were like, yeah, come play with us. So seemingly out of nowhere, but um, it definitely just taught me to never be scared to lose. And losing's part of it, right? Losing's part of the journey, and when you learn to lose first, really, then you start to learn, okay, what can I do better? All right, what advantages do I have, and what weaknesses am I approaching this with, right? How can I correct my weaknesses and thrive off of my strengths? Um, and that's the NFL in a nutshell, right? You got to take your strengths and let them bloom and blossom, and then take your weaknesses and just continuously work on them, wipe them away, wipe them away, wipe them away until you have this much weakness and you're constantly working on it, and everything else is just an exposed strength.
Well, one thing about football that might be a little bit different than some of the other sports is football has such a negative bias. Coaches focus on what you didn't do well. Every time you watch game film, it's like, okay, let's break him down. Did he line up in the right place? Did he know his assignment? Did he read his keys? Was his instincts correct? And it's like there's a lot more technical aspects to football than the average fan believe or even would think, because you have a certain role and a certain job. And if you're not doing it, they'll find somebody else that will.
Yep.
Right?
And I feel like it can make the game super complex, but it can also make it very simple, right? I had a coach in college, our head coach, Coach Martin, who just hammered that home of, you got one job, right? Like, do your one job. Don't try and be Superman. Don't try, because in high school I had, like I said, 150 kids. Like, nobody else on my football team, went to go play football at the Division I level or D2. I think we might have had one NAIA player, and so I go from that, where I played punter, I was kickoff returner, punt returner, tight end, running back, wide receiver, corner, linebacker, safety, D end, like you name it. I played all of those positions in high school, and I go to college where our coach is like, "Hey, one job, just do your one job, have your technique, and just play the play. You got 10 other guys you're counting on, right, to do their job. And if everybody does their one job, then you'll have success." And I bought into that, and that has helped me tremendously in the NFL. I mean, special teams, like, you can't make every tackle, right? But sometimes forcing the guy to go one way into another guy, like, you did your job. And that's how you stay on a team. That's how you keep your spot. That's how you, week by week, just continuously make a name for yourself.
Okay, Sterling. So this is pro mindset. And pro mindset is really about a handful of things. One is doing your best in the biggest moments, doing your best when you're under pressure, doing something that has never been done before. You have to have a special mindset to do something that's never been done before. Doing something that people have told you can't do. You have a pro mindset, that's how you do it. You get past that hurdle. What's been the biggest hurdle for you in the NFL to overcome, and how have you overcome it in terms of the mental approach to the game?
Let's see. In the NFL, I mean, so far my biggest hurdle, I would say, right, is being cut and trying to, quote unquote, like, make up for time. I would say, in the coach's eyes in Chicago, they've only seen me play 3 preseason games. And it's worth mentioning, right? In college, I played 5 years of safety, and so there's a lot of questions of, oh, can he play linebacker? Is he strong enough? Can he, right? All that stuff. And so I think that, it's something that I'm working through right now. I'm super excited to go to camp this year and be able to show these coaches, right, that I can play linebacker at a high level. I can do it over and over again, make the plays that come to me, and not try to go make every play, but just do my job, right? That same mindset, and I would say that, right, that's my biggest hurdle that I'm trying to overcome right now, is going from a special teams player to how can I get some linebacker reps? How can I play linebacker? How can I, right, prove all these people wrong that didn't think that I could play safety? They definitely didn't think I could play safety, and linebacker, definitely not. Um, they have me as, right, getting cut and never playing football again. So how can I, right, continue just to take those strides? And it's really just competing against myself. I feel like you said, it's a hyper critical game. Football is, and that can definitely lead into, right, your own thoughts of, dang, okay, like, being negative, and it's constantly a battle between me and myself, of how can I stay positive, and how can I just do my best and do better than I did last time, right? And if you're constantly improving, that's all coaches really want to see. They want to see you constantly improving. If you've hit your ceiling, then they're not super excited about that.
Well, let's talk about that more specifically, Sterling. You're less than 2 weeks before you report to training camp, and this is year 2. First time you're going through training camp with this organization. You had an excellent team's rookie season. You were one of the primary contributors for teams. How can you prepare yourself, because it's you versus you? What is your plan? How are you going to mentally prepare yourself? What are your systems? What is your daily routine? What's your thought life to put yourself in a position so when you show up at training camp, you walk, talk, work, and most importantly, perform like a starting linebacker in the NFL?
Yeah, I feel like the biggest and most important piece is you have to believe. My dad told me when I was younger, all the way through, right? He's still telling me today. He says, if you tell yourself you can't do something, you'll always be right. Now, that doesn't guarantee that if you tell yourself you can, then you'll always do it. But certainly the other way around. If I can't squat this, I can't, right, do this rep, then you'll never get it done. So the first step is believing that I can be a starting linebacker in the NFL. I read a book recently, in the past couple of years. It's called Atomic Habits. I'm sure you've heard of it.
I've read it.
And a lot of, right, a lot of the people who know what they're talking about when it comes to the brain is right. They talk about identity. They talk about, if you're somebody who wants to quit smoking, or, right, quit a bad habit, then you have to first identify, okay, I'm not somebody who does these things. And so I'm using that to my advantage the other way of, all right, I am, right, I'm believing right now, and I'm establishing I am going to be a starting linebacker in the NFL. And then, that the next tier behind that is, okay, well, what does a starting linebacker in the NFL do? Well, I'll tell you, they work on their body day in and day out constantly. They watch film, they're prepared. Um, and so, transitioning to kind of a daily routine, um, I wake up, probably between, 6:30 and 7. Um, First thing I do is read my devotional, read my Bible, get my mind right, and prepared for the day. And then usually just have some alone time, drink a huge thing of water, and head off to my workout at 9. I work out from 9 to 12. I had surgery about 7 weeks ago, so I'm still like going through some PT, and usually that's kind of thrown in there, before or after the workout. So between 12 and 12:30, I'll head home, get some lunch, and then I just try to find an activity that is, right, a lifestyle that will also help me become a better football player. So that's what I try and fill the rest of my day with. Like today, I went paddle boarding. just trying to work on my balance. Was doing some exercises on the paddleboard. Um, I'll do like some yoga in the attic where it's hot. Um, I'll play chess. I'll do like brain games, and then usually try to throw in like about an hour and a half of film, and then really just focus in on right my diet and my sleep. And I think that those two are the most important when it comes to right nutrition and sleep. When it comes to recovery and when it comes to like your body and mind, and I would say that that's like a general daily daily routine that I have picked up and I'm going through in these last couple weeks and now right the couple weeks going forward before camp.
Okay, Sterling, I'm going to challenge you to, in the next 2 weeks before you show up for training camp, to write an identity statement of who you are for 2023. What's your 2023 version of you?
Yep.
You were all world in high school. You played every position. You played on both sides of the ball. You played in all three phases. And you were in the back of the defense in college. And since you've been in the pros, you've primarily been on teams. But you want to change that, and you want to be a player that's playing on defense, because everybody knows that when you become a bigger contributor, when your contract's up down the road, you're going to get more compensation and more security and all the things that go along with that. So I think the first step is to write down, who are you? Why do you do what you do? Who do you do it for? How great do you want to be? And don't be bashful. Don't worry about what other people think. They don't have to see it. This is for you, and it's about you, by you.
Yeah. It's crazy too because at some point after my red shirt, so I redshirted my freshman year at Miami, and going into my sophomore year football season, and I was in camp, and I'll never forget this. I don't even know who the guy was that I was talking to. My brother had met somebody in spring break who, right, was somebody who helped athletes gain a mental edge. And it was funny because I got on the phone with this guy. I talked with him for about an hour and a half, and he was all about that. And I wrote some stuff down and kind of just tacked it on my wall. Fast forward 4 years after that, I had found that note, and every single thing that I wrote down on there had happened, except for getting drafted. And I think that there's power in doing that. I think that absolutely. I was gonna make. I think last time we talked, you challenged me to creating a video for myself. Just talking to myself, and so that's kind of what I've been working on. What am I gonna say? How am I gonna tell myself right now where I'm not under a lot of stress? I'm clear minded, right? I am optimistic. I'm confident, and what? How impactful will those words be to me when I'm broken down, my body's hurting? Because inevitably that happens in camp. This is not my first year of playing football, and I know and recognize that camp is a grinder, and right, it'll break you down as much as you let it, right? And so I'm definitely working on that video. I'll get to working on the identity statement. I'll have to send it to you after this.
Okay, I'm going to give you one more thought. The NFL typically has their press conferences for the opening season, like the Tuesday before, sometimes the Monday before the opening game. Let's put yourself in a position where you do everything that you're capable of doing, and you surprise your coaches that you're more capable and more prepared to be the guy than they ever thought you were. And for your opening, who do you guys play week one? Do you know who
Week
Bears
one, we
play week
played
one?
Green Bay.
Okay. So big time divisional rival. Jordan Love's first start, basically having the keys to the car of the Green Bay Packers. Sterling Weatherford is one of the starting linebackers for the Chicago Bears for the opening day. And you're going to get these questions from the media like, Sterling, man, you just got picked up on waivers. All you did last year was play on teams. I want you to anticipate and answer every question you think the Chicago media is going to ask you before week one when you're the guy. Somebody's going to be the guy on your 90 guys. Somebody right now that the team doesn't expect to start is going to be the opening day starter. I don't know what position it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be an offensive lineman. I don't know if it's going to be you. But if you can prepare for that media interview now, your brain subconsciously all through training camp will be working towards being the starter.
Yeah.
And it's like your dad said, it may not happen, but it won't happen if you don't.
Yep. If you don't believe, it definitely won't.
Okay. So everybody's got oxygen. What is the oxygen that makes you tick? What is your oxygen? What is the thing that makes you be great? What's the thing that gives you the most joy? It doesn't have to be football. It can be anything. What's your oxygen?
Yeah. I would say, first off, my faith. I think that, and we don't have enough time to sit here and talk about all of that. But I think that, right, my faith of right in God, and that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and that I have everything I need for right now. Those are two fundamental things that I cling on to. And, my big motivator for sports, I love sports just because of how well it translates to life. I tell all my friends back home, I'm like, yeah, a week in the NFL is really something like a month out in the quote unquote real world. And so everything is sped up. And you can see that as, oh, this is stressful. Oh, this is a lot. Or you can flip that and say, you know what, I have an opportunity every week to really challenge myself. And that's definitely, I would say, my oxygen of competition. That drives me. Never steering away from it as a child, never steering away from it in high school or college. It's opened a lot of doors for me, and the way my brain processes is like, all right, well, if I can challenge myself to become a better version of myself, right? And here's football, a very direct example, a very direct avenue for me to be able to do that. Then in turn, right, I'm becoming a better version of myself as a whole, as a person. And so I like to look at football as just that, right? An opportunity for me to challenge myself. And so, it helps too, because all of this noise, all the media, right, all these questions, it's me versus me. And right, and I'm limited to the body I'm in, and I'm limited to the mind that I have. And I think that, right, as a professional athlete, your body, it's your responsibility to take care of. It's your responsibility to preserve, to stay healthy, right? Obviously, freak things happen, but your mind, I would say, is a tool. Your mind is an advantage. Um, I could have taken slam. I could have taken, the football major. My mom calls it underwater basket weaving at Miami. But I challenged myself and graduated with a mechanical engineering degree. So if you kind of look at, right, my life as a whole, I would say that I'm constantly trying to find avenues that I'm challenging myself in. So that's the thing that, right, when I wake up, it's like, all right, can I be better than I was yesterday? And that's, like I said, that's a very direct correlation into football, and having success in football.
Absolutely. Well, I have a variety of different thoughts here. One of them is that, from my experience, I think one game in the regular season of the NFL is equivalent to 1 year of life, because of all the potential transactions, all the transitions, all the preparation. It's like hyper focus, get ready for that next game. There's nothing short of excellence and perfection that these coaches want you guys to have in terms of your preparation. When you guys do walkthroughs, half the guys are wanting to fall asleep because it's boring. But if you don't know what you're supposed to do, it'll show up on Sunday you may not be there on Monday.
Yep.
And if you're on a championship level team, if you're winning, GMs get superstitious. Coaches get superstitious. They don't want to cut guys. So they will only make roster moves when somebody gets hurt. But if you're not on a winning team, they take pride in churning the roster every single week.
Yep.
2-3 guys every week. So how many friends do you think your parents have that are like in the real world that are worried about getting fired every single day?
Yep.
They're not. But in the NFL, a thought crosses through your brain every time you see somebody's locker cleaned out.
Yeah. And you
Fair?
know, one interesting thing that one piece of advice I got last year, right? I spent a lot of time in that of, I can't get cut. I don't get cut every week, every day. I'm going to get cut. And you know, I got to a point where I was like, man, I'm fed up with this. And I can't remember who told me this, but you know, they told me when you're skiing, if you're going down a hill and all you focus on is don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, inevitably you'll hit the tree. Versus
Every time.
if you're constantly looking, okay, find the path, find the path, find the path, find the way that it works, find the way that it works. You right, like I've said this multiple times, you flip the script and you change your mindset of, okay, I'm finding a way where I'm going to be here. And that has been very powerful to me. It's helped me a lot. And yeah, exactly. I mean, every week you could focus on, oh, I'm going to get cut, or who's going to get cut, you know, this, that, and the third, right? We played on a team that we had 3 wins last year. We so many cuts. And even, you know, the guys who were considered the leaders of the defense mid-season, you know, they're getting traded. And our team is seemingly falling apart. And it's like, how do you find that consistency? How do you weather the storm when the whole organization is seemingly right getting tossed up in flames? Everyone's running around screaming, panicking. It's like, look for the path, right? Find a way through. Always believe that you can find a way through.
One other thing, when you're talking about snow skiing, right? The metaphor you're using is snow skiing.
Yep.
Okay, so what happens is when you go to the top of the mountain is you take a big look and then you see how steep it is. And your normal reaction is to lean back. And you don't have any control on your skis when you lean back. You have to lean forward. You have to lean into the hill. So not only do you have to find the path when it gets hard, you have to lean into it because the only way through it is through it, not around it. So I think the thing that I share with my clients, and I'll tell anybody that'll listen that's in a hyper competitive environment like yours, is that you are good enough. You're good enough. And if you don't think you are, they're not going to think you are. So you have to believe you're worthy, because if you don't, you'll die on the vine and you'll be on the waiver wire. Yep. And if you do your best because you believe you're the best and they don't think you are at that point in time, you'll thrive somewhere else.
Exactly.
Which is what you did last year.
And that's the thing is you know, the realization, right, with that piece of advice of see the path. I'm worried about getting cut. I'm worried about what's going to happen. And you know, taking it back to my faith is like, okay, my biggest fear is getting cut and losing my job. And the irony of that is I already did, right? I already did in Indianapolis and I'm taken care of. And so it kind of was like a slap in the face of like, dude, like, where's your faith, right? Where's your faith at? You're sitting here just worried about things you can't control. And like, if they cut me, then they cut me. Like that, as long as I had done my best and am at peace with that, and I truly believe that this is an opportunity and where I'm supposed to be, then I very strongly feel that I will be taken care of. And I wanted to share this too. Being mechanical engineering mindset, it's hard, right? Because I've found myself being one of two ways, right? Growing up, I didn't think about ball. Like my preparation was being free and just competing against a guy across from me. And there's something to be said about that. That's a very important piece. Um, I fell in love with football because I didn't know anything about it. I just went out there and played, scored touchdowns, and tackled the guy with the ball. Right, that was my high school career. When I got to college, this entire world was opened up to me about, okay, pre-snap alignments, body position, where I'm going to be on the field, what's my key, and the game shrunk into a bunch of little tiny small things. And so I've also been on the other flip side of the coin of being hyper, right, overthinking a lot of things
Analytical.
and
Yeah.
hyper analytical. Yeah. And what I'm trying to, right, the groove I'm trying to build now is being in perfect balance of both of those things, right? When I'm not competing, every little thing, every tiny little step, every alignment, what can I look at? Right? What's my, like, when I'm squatting, what's my core like? How am I functionally moving? How am I watching film? Right? All of these things can be analyzed under a microscope. But then when I'm playing, just letting all that go and trusting that I've put all of my energy and all of my effort into technique, pre-snap alignments, right? All of this stuff, like, that's already in my brain. It's already there. Now all I have to do, I don't have to think. I just got to go out there and compete against the guy across from me. And so one way I've been doing that is through golf. I'll go hit at the range and, try to critique my swing, try to turn a little bit, right? My foot placement, my core, and there's all a million details, and golf is perfect, right? It's you're competing against yourself. How do you rally back? How do you have the next shot? But I've been challenging myself to just focus on being fluid. When I go to swing and I'm playing, just be fluid and trust it. And I would definitely say that, right, that I haven't mastered it, and I don't think anybody's mastered it. I feel like it's always going to be an ebb and flow. Um, but that's definitely something that I've been honing in on day in and day out of how can I be super analytical over here, and then it's time to compete. Go back to that childhood Sterling of, I don't care who's crossed the line for me. I'm gonna whoop your ass. Like, that's what I believe. And here we go.
I love it. Sterling, you just described there's three phases of pro mindset. The second phase and the third phase, you just described it. The second phase is your process. It's being in alignment with your purpose. It's being prepared for whatever you're going to do. It's practicing at game speed. It's visual. It's all that stuff that you can do before the competition. But then when you get in the competition, it's showing up with everything that you've brought, everything you bring to the table. If
Yep.
you've done a lot of film work that week and you know what the other team's probably going to be doing in different formations and different personnel packages, just let it flow.
Right.
And when you get in the game, you got to drop into your heart and get out of your head so you can play like you're in the 7th grade again.
Yep.
I tell my clients, I tell my kids, act like you're playing in the backyard. Play. Go back to 7th grade. You didn't have all these things you were thinking about.
Right.
Right? So NFL coaches are really good at taking great athletes and making them slow because they give them too much to think about.
Yep.
And then you'll hear, like, mid-season, the D coordinator will say something like, yeah, we just kind of dumbed down our defense, let our guys be athletes and let them play. Well, what do you effectively say there? We give them less to think about. So as a person, you have to do that yourself, to yourself, and have a standard that's better and higher than the coaches so that you can always be a step ahead of your coaches.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And right, believing and having that bar and expectation that nobody's going to have a higher expectation for me than me. I think that's probably my pet peeve when I look at other people. When somebody has a higher expectation for you than you do yourself, and I'm like, how can that How can that exist? Like, where's your mind at? So that I would say, as far as being motivated by fear a little bit, that would be my fear that I'm motivated by, of like, I'm not going to let somebody else have a higher expectation for me than me.
Well, getting back to something else you said that's really, really appropriate in training camp is the concept of, instead of counting the reps, make your reps count. And what most players do is they go, well, I got 4 reps today. I got 7 yesterday. So I must be in the doghouse, or they like somebody else better. Not understanding the bigger picture that coaches are just, you guys are pawns, especially during camp. They're putting you in different situations. They're testing how you respond to different situations. Sometimes they may not give you any reps for a day because they're trying to check out somebody else to decide if they're going to cut them or not. And they decide to cut him, but then the next day when that player comes back, because now he's not feeling good about himself because he didn't get reps the day before, he's still in his head about being pissed off. He sucks. They cut him too.
Yep.
So I see it all the time where it's like, this could have happened with you and JoJo with Indy, is they cut you both and sign somebody off waivers from somebody somewhere else.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so it's like you got to really dial in on the opportunities that you get, the reps you get, and make them count. And if they're not good enough, screw them and go on to the next team.
Right. And I feel like the one of the best ways to have success in the NFL, and this is a word that every day I wake up, I look at it, it's written on my whiteboard, sitting right behind me. It's consistency. How can I be consistent? It doesn't matter, what is thrown at me, how many reps I get. How can I just be consistent and, consistently changing? I'm a math guy. I won't nerd out on you, but the idea of a derivative, right? If you have a graph with a slope that's positive, say it's just 1, right? The slope is 1, right? The derivative of that is 1. And so that line is consistent. But if you look at the actual graph, right, it's always growing. It's always growing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's right, being consistent and consistently growing. I feel like that when I spend a lot of time talking to vets that have been on 6, 7 teams. They're in year 8, year 9. Like, I'm like, all right, yeah, tell me, tell me, how did you get here? What is, in your own words, in your own brain, what allowed you to survive? Because you played all special teams on 6 different teams for 8 years. And it's just being prepared and having that consistency about you, that because consistency turns into reliability. And at the end of the day, we talked about getting cut, but I mean, the coaches, they have plenty of pressure on them too, that, they want to keep their job. And if their players aren't playing well, then the guy above them is saying, hey, what's going on? And so, they're going to inevitably lean to the guys who can be consistent, who can be reliable day in and day out, whether I give you 1 rep or whether you're the starter and you take 68 reps, right? What are you going to do? What's your margin of error? And so I think that, I'm big on words and I'm big on numbers, and that is kind of how my brain internalizes it, and what I'm trying to hone in on, especially going into this year and the future of my career. And I feel like those are skills that apply to life. Everybody can value from being consistent. Everybody can value from being reliable, and everybody can value from going above and beyond the expectations that others have for you. That will create success wherever you are.
Similar meaning. I call it showing up. Have you ever turned on the TV to watch a hoops game and you just feel like the guys didn't show up? Or it's like, like watched an NFL game and it's like the guys look like they're going through the motions.
Yeah.
If you want to play for as long as you can for your highest self, you have to show up every day. Your commitment, your preparation, your sacrifice, your focus, your belief in yourself, your confidence in what you do every single day. And you know what? You can take off while you're sleeping. And then when you wake up the next day, you got to show up again.
Yep.
And when you show up, you're going to be consistent. You're going to be prepared. You're going to make your reps count. You're going to earn trust with your coaches.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? That's the name of the game. Especially for somebody who has started right in the special teams world, and is trying to build up. I mean, some people, a very small percentage, are fortunate enough to be drafted on day 1 or day 2, hop right into a starting position, and right. But I also think that those guys have showed it. Most of them have showed it before that they can do that. And so, I think that I have more of a direct opportunity to show them coming into camp this year.
Well, one of the things I think is part of your identity statement is what is your story? And all of us have stories. Athletes, all you got to do is watch the Olympics. And what do they do in the Olympics? They tell us their story.
Yep.
When they were told when they were 6 they weren't going to be able to walk, and then they end up being an Olympic marathon runner. And it's like you are the author of your own story, and you tell yourself what you tell yourself. And I want you to look at being undrafted, because there's a lot of good players that don't get drafted for lots of different reasons. And probably the most likely reason for you was a position switch. That hurts guys. And so athletically, you should have been drafted. If you'd have played 1 year linebacker in college, you might have been a 3rd rounder. Doesn't matter. Where you're at right now in your story is that you're going to be a baller and you're going to go take care of your business moving forward. It doesn't matter if you got drafted or not. And here's the benefit of not being drafted. You can renegotiate your contract a year before everybody else.
Yep.
You get an opportunity to be a restricted free agent that allows you to leave, compared to the guys that get drafted that sign 4-year deals that can't leave until after 4.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, I would flip on its head the concept of not getting drafted and use it to your advantage, and look at the assets and the advantages of not getting drafted, as opposed to, or you frame it however you want, but there's a lot of advantages to not getting drafted. The only thing that sucks about it is on draft weekend, you have to sit there and watch 250 some guys get drafted and thinking that you're better than half of them, and you should have been drafted the day before.
Right. And another book that I read, that's been very impactful. It's by David Goggins. I don't know if you are familiar with him. It's called Can't Hurt Me. And his story is unbelievable. But one of the main messages I took from that, right? He calls it a cookie jar. He calls it, right, a cookie jar of all the things, all the times you were counted out, all of the hardships that you've prevailed through, right? All of the things that have happened to you that suck, for lack of a better term, they just suck. And you made it through those things. And so his whole mindset is that I am mentally stronger than you. Say you got drafted. I'm mentally stronger than you because I sat through that weekend with my whole family and watched every single name get called except for mine. Right? So now that's something I have in my tank. That's extra fuel. And it didn't cost me anything, right? I can tap into that whenever I need to. And there's a lot of instances like that in my life. And I just think that, right, I'm all about just finding ways to take things that are not necessarily an ideal situation in your life, or they don't have an ideal narrative, and changing the narrative to right being grateful and also being motivated to go forward. Because at the end of the day, right, time moves in one direction, and so the way I see it is you either stop where you are right now or you keep moving forward because you can't go back, can't go backwards. Um, and so just that motivation, like, all right, don't stop, don't ever stop. Right, I've made it too far. I've went through too much crap. I put in too much work to A, be complacent of, okay, I played a year in the NFL, and B, have anybody tell me that I'm stopping right now, right? And setting that expectation for me.
Sterling, I don't think there's any doubt that you're going to keep going. I don't think you're going to be stopping anytime soon. And I think that with the mindset that you have and the time I've gotten to know you and the fact that just the support system you have with your family, your lovely wife, you're going to have lots of success, lots of success. So I want to thank you today for being on Pro Mindset. I want to wish you and the Bears a successful 23 season. And I want you to go into training camp and I want you to be that dude. Somebody gets to be that dude.
Yep.
That shocks the whole team. That's like, we didn't expect that.
Yep.
And be that dude that, when the season starts, or maybe even better, when the season's over and you look back in your rearview mirror, holy smokes.
Right.
This is even better than I expected.
Right. And constantly ask myself every day, why not me? Right? Why not me?
Why not you?
Yep.
Amen, brother.
Well, I appreciate you for having me on here. It was a blast. Thank you. I took a lot from things that you've shared with me. So I'll do my homework. I'll send it over to you.
I want to thank you for tuning in to Pro Mindset Podcast. If you enjoyed the listen, please leave a 5-star rating. If the message was a vibration you connected with, and you have any friends, family, or colleagues who would benefit, then please share this episode with them. You can follow Pro Mindset Podcast on the following social media platforms: Instagram and YouTube, Pro Mindset Podcast; Twitter and Facebook, Pro Mindset Pod; LinkedIn, Pro Mindset. We will drop our shows, Pro Mindset Podcasts, every Wednesday morning, and we invite you to listen and subscribe. Also, don't hesitate to check out our archives to listen to previous shows. And finally, I encourage you to embrace a Pro Mindset truth from today's show. It just might be the key to unlock the pro inside you.